So I'm, as Doug Ruecker, I'm the professor of finance here at Messiah Lutheran Church. And welcome to class. We have a little business class today. Today's class is Church Business 101. And I want to apologize that this is normally a 1-hour lecture followed by a Q&A. And Jessica has given me 7 minutes to do this. So when the CLT started exploring the idea of a mission developer and a capital campaign, as a financial secretary here in charge of running the business of the church. And if you think about it, Messiah is $1 million business. We have over $1 million budget with the preschool. I asked the question to myself, I says, does this make business sense to do this endeavor? And so I started diving into the history of Messiah and into the archives. I didn't have to go very far for the archives since I am part of the archives, being here for 40 years. But it was amazing what I found, that the history of the business life cycle of Messiah is like a textbook example of business cycles. And so today's topic is, what can we learn from business cycles that help the church grow? Because I think we are a textbook example. So let's dive in. If you would have done your reading for today's class, you would have been reading on business life cycles. This is just a normal, everyday business. If you're lucky enough to start a business with a great idea, and lucky enough to be able to execute on that idea, you'll see a growth pattern. Most great businesses, all great businesses, congregations have a growth pattern. But eventually, you mature and you level off, a plateauing. And there's many reasons why a business will plateau. But one of the reasons, and we don't have time to talk about all those different reasons, but one of the reasons that kind of sneaks up on businesses is a changing marketplace. You continue to do business like you've always done, but you start getting less results. And why is that? Because the marketplace changes. You continue to do business like you've always done, but you're not getting the results. You haven't changed, but the marketplace has changed. So you reach a critical point right in here that business has to make some choices, maybe some changes. Maybe it's a chaotic time because we don't want to change the way we do business, or we don't want to adapt to the changing places. And so businesses need to kind of reinvent themselves, maybe introduce new products. They won't get rid of their old products because they still have a customer base for that, but they maybe have to introduce some new ideas. So like I said, I dove into the archives and I said, well, let's look at Messiah's history. So the next slide, I wanted to look, we measure business success in the church, at least have been for the last 50 years, on average worship attendance on a given weekend. This chart shows from 1975 to 93 our average worship attendance here at Messiah. You can notice we had a quick spurt and then kind of basically a downward trend. So what's happening here, go ahead on that next, right? What's happening in here? We have a 40% increase in attendance in a 2-year period. What are we doing right? If you know the history of Messiah, this is when we built this building, 76, 77. It created excitement. People started coming to church, and we had a growth spurt. But then over the next 10 years, we see kind of a downward decline, like a lot of churches during this period of time. I would call this as business as usual, all right? The excitement of a new church was not sustainable. New church building just wasn't sustainable. We continued to do business as usual, and we saw a decline, and eventually it created a little bit of chaos, and eventually go ahead, the next point there is a pastoral vacancy, and we kind of bottomed out here in 93. So the next slide, it shows it from 93 to the present day. Notice a different trajectory. What caused this? So first of all, we had a pastoral leadership change. Peter and Kathy came in 93, 94, and we saw a decade of growth. But like all great businesses, all great congregations, we eventually hit a plateau. Okay, this plateau in 2002, we continue to do, go ahead, we continue to do business as usual, okay? We were still doing things like we always did, but we saw a decline in our growth. So was this should we continue to do business as usual, or do we see this as an opportunity to maybe tweak how we do business, or maybe add some additional products? So in 2007, we did a capital campaign, and we started some new initiatives. We didn't change the way we were doing business, we added to it. And it was amazing to me that trajectory back to the upward happened exactly when we did the capital campaign and the new initiatives. The new initiatives were the new pipe organ, the new multimedia. We bought the preschool building and expanded that. We renovated the building, and we started North County, and we started the Saturday night worship service. As a result of those new initiatives, we were back on the growth. So that brings us to today. Notice the last couple of years, we've plateaued again. Again, all great businesses do this, but great businesses also want to get out in front of the marketplace and say, what do we need to tweak if we want to continue to grow the church? So that brings me to our last slide. And this is a business slide I found on the internet. But when I found it, I said, wow, this is Messiah 2018. Just point out a couple of different things. First one, it says, find hacks to accelerate your early learning. What in the heck does that mean? It says, well, I interpret that as this. So if you want to get out in front of the marketplace to anticipate the changing marketplace, you need to find some expertise to help you learn that quickly. I interpret this as find a mission developer to accelerate Messiah's early learning. It's not really early learning, but we need to learn new skills. So, and the next point here is start developing new skills way in advance of plateauing. A lot of people have come up to me and said, why do we need to change anything here at Messiah? We're a really successful congregation, and we are. But to stay successful, we need to get out in front of where the market is going, all right? And all great businesses don't wait until the decline is way down here before they wake up. Great businesses anticipate it, and that's why we need to jump on and initiate some new ideas today. And then the last point here, and this was biblical to me, you recognize these words, do not be afraid. How many times do we hear that in the Bible? Our God says to us, do not be afraid. Intern Ryan mentioned this to me when I did this presentation in North County. He says, you know, every time in the Bible when we hear the words, do not be afraid, it's followed by good news, all right? God comes to us and says, don't be afraid. It takes courage to jump from one business curve to the next. Staying in the comfort zone is easy, but greatness happens when you escape from it. So as a result of my diving into this and looking at it as the business idea, does it make business sense for Messiah to take on these new initiatives with a new capital campaign? I would say it's not only makes business sense, but it's critical to future success of Messiah and the church. Thank you very much. Oh, and the midterm exam is next week.